I made a bunch of hypothetical events in Gran Turismo featuring various motorsports, because while the series has had some of these in-game motorsports collabs before, there's still an entire world of oil and steel waiting to be explored and learned about. So today, let's dive into 6 hypothetical event collabs, going over what they could look like in-game and what they could teach to the player. And be sure to stick around to the end, because we'll be learning about some pretty cool series in this video. But for now, let's start off our journey with the rather topical series thanks to recent updates, the World Endurance Championship. This series features a calendar of long endurance races, most notable of which being the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Races are run by hypercars and GT3 cars, and what do you know, they added a bunch of the former in update 1.70 of GT7. So how will we build a collaboration based on this series? As I mentioned earlier, Gran Turismo has had experience with IRL motorsport collabs, so to choose something to build our hypothetical events around, I'm going to pick the NASCAR special event from Gran Turismo 5 as our baseline. This event works incredibly well in not only GT gameplay, but also in its connection to the Source series, which we'll unpack as we go along. To start off, let's discuss the structure of the events. In GT5, the so-called Jeff Gordon NASCAR school is split off into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels. Each level has a few events showcasing series-specific aspects of driving, such as drafting and inside-outside lines in the case of NASCAR. We'll do the same for most of the upcoming collabs in this list. There will be a few levels with events revolving around a specific mechanic in the racing series. That means for our WEC special event, we'll find some series-specific mechanics to focus on in our levels. Luckily for us, there's one glaringly obvious one that we can divide our levels by. Like many other racing series, the World Endurance Championship runs multiple classes with separate class wins. Essentially, each class runs their own race with their own class winners and championship, but on the same track as the other classes. As of 2026, WEC features the main hypercar and LMGT3 classes, as well as the recently scaled back LMP2 class, which now runs solely at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, so we'll divide our levels between these classes. The less powerful GT3 level can be provided as a beginner event, while the more powerful hypercar level can be offered at a more advanced stage. We can also maybe include LMP2 as an intermediate level, but as I just mentioned, the class isn't really involved with the larger championship anymore, so I'll keep it out for now to avoid redundancy. There's also gonna be a third secret level that I'll cover soon. I promised it'd make this whole thing worthwhile. But with our class divisions down, what WEC specific events could we include? Let's dive into them, starting with the multi-class racing we just mentioned. One of the main appeals to multi-class series like WEC is the added action with back markers. Having to not only battle with the drivers in your own class, but also work around the cars of other classes is where much of the excitement in this series' racing comes from. So our first event in both of our levels will involve multi-class race scenarios. All our events could theoretically work on any track, but since this series has the 24 Hours of Le Mans, I'll put them all on Circuit de la Sarthe. Anyway, in the GT3 level, this event will involve battling other GT3 cars for position, while some front-running hypercars come by to pass and shake things up. And in the hypercar level, it'll involve battling other hypercars while trying not to get caught up by backmarker GT3 cars. These events would challenge the player's multitasking ability and ease them into the multi-class system that WEC has. Our second event for both levels will focus on another quirk sported by WEC and other series, driver changes. So remember in Gran Turismo 4 when you could pit in and switch to your B-spec driver in the middle of a race? Changing drivers like in GT4 is key in WEC, as it's pretty much how we can even get these extremely long races done without putting too much strain on the drivers. That means it's time to bring B-spec back from the dead for the second event with a traditional lap race. But there's a catch. You start off in B-spec for the first half, then when everyone pits, you swap to A-spec and drive the second half. This event would provide a unique challenge and get the player even more used to mid-race driver changes like in WEC. For this event, we'll save the multi-class system for the third event we'll get to later, since I want to design this event to focus solely on the driver swaps for now. And finally, for our third event in these two levels, we'll introduce the concept of timed races versus lap races. Endurance races in Gran Turismo have traditionally just been regular reach the end first lap races, but with an extended lap count relative to normal races. In WEC, however, the majority of races run on a timed basis. Essentially, the goal is to complete as many laps as possible within a given time period. Gran Turismo has also had this type of race, but since it's not as common in game, I figured it'd be nice to include it here to integrate with WEC and familiarize the player with the idea. And since we're still in relatively short event event territory, well short to WEC standards anyway, we'll do a bite-sized 24 minutes of Le Mans race similar to that in GT6 for our third event, one for the GT3 level and another for the hypercar level. They're only 24 minutes though, so we don't piss off any completionists who just want to 100% FC the whole thing. This event will build up on everything learned previously, so it will be a multi-class race with the gold criteria essentially being a class win, and you can also switch to your B-spec driver if you really want. And that wraps up our 2 levels, each dedicated to teaching you the basics of WEC and its classes. But you know, only 24 minutes of Le Mans isn't really cutting it for me, and it probably isn't for you either. So that's where we return to our secret third level in the WEC special event, a level with full 24 hours of Le Mans races. Continuing in the spirit of the 24-hour races in previous games, our secret level will have its own 24-hour races, except with some fancy new additions. First of all, separate races for each class you want to drive. That means a 24-hour race for the GT3 class, another 24-hour race for the hypercar class, and hey, maybe one for the LMP2s as well, why not? Okay, maybe it'll be a pain in the ass for the completionists, but it'd be cool as all hell being able to simulate Le Mans in Gran Turismo with any class you please. On top of that, they'd be actual multi-class races with class wins, something that GT currently can't accomplish even with custom races. This helps make our 24-hour races much more fun and brings them closer to the real race, as the same races in past Gran Turismos were single-class races run by Group Cs and prototypes. You can also switch to your B-spec driver, but it's not forced. You can complete the 24 hours with some IRL friends or even completely solo if it's more fun. Finally, since this is Gran Turismo, let's talk prizes. Like many of the other existing special events, we'll be giving out prize cards for completing these events. In the WEC event in particular, we'll give out prizes just for all golds, but as we'll see later in this video, this won't always be the case. I think it's pretty obvious what we could do here. Winning all golds in the GT3 level will give you a GT3 car like the Ferrari 296 GT3 or some of the more expensive ones. Winning all golds in the hypercar level will give you a hypercar like the Toyota TR010 Hybrid, which I really hope gets added to the game soon. And winning the 24 hours of Le Mans level will win you a classic Group C car like the Mazda 787B or Sauber C9. With that, we've got a pretty good setup for our WEC special event. While it's no full career mode and definitely not as fleshed out as something like Le Mans Ultimate could be, it's a nice GT style look into the world of the championship. But it doesn't even have to just be WEC. There's another series that this type of thing could work for. I'm of course talking about the IMSA Sports Car Championship, which is essentially WEC's kooky American cousin. The two series share a lot in common, such as the multi-class system and long endurance races with driver changes. So with some tinkering, you could adjust this to work with IMSA. Perhaps the event could focus more on the various American tracks or even the 24 hours of Daytona. But on the topic of IMSA, my Fahrenheit hot dog looking ass is hankering for some more American bullshit. So for the next series on our list, we'll stay here and cover another championship endemic to the States. I'm talking of course about none other than IndyCar. This series brings us across the US and sometimes Canada and has open wheel formula cars tackling various road courses, street tracks, and ovals. These different types of tracks offer varying challenges to drivers, so we can divide our levels based on this. That means we'll have one level for road courses and street tracks and another for ovals. The road course and street tracks are most similar to the tracks found in regular Gran Turismo gameplay, so I don't think we should focus much on learning the types of track themselves. Instead, we'll use this level to focus on getting acquainted with the car itself, the Dallara IR18. As an open wheel formula car, the IR18 is lightweight and powerful. That means it has a pretty high power to weight ratio and in turn is much harder to control. This means good throttle control is vital for extracting maximum performance out of the car. So to introduce this aspect to the player, the first event in this section will focus on testing this throttle control through various corners. It'll be a traditional license test style time attack event at Laguna Seca. Not only is it the host of the Grand Prix of Monterey, but I figured a lap here would offer a wide enough variety of corner types to get used to putting on the throttle appropriately, with corners like the first hairpin and the infamous corkscrew helping this along. Another notable feature on the IR18 is the push to pass system, similar to the Super Formula car's overtake function that appears in GT7. It provides a limited boost in power that can be used to attack, defend, or simply decrease lap times. To encourage the player to use this system wisely, our our second event in this section will have the player catch up and make an overtake in one lap with limited push to pass. The track used shouldn't really matter, but I kinda want to put it in Long Beach for the street track representation, and also because I live in SoCal and I'm completely biased towards it. What does matter is that said overtake would be difficult without using push to pass or when using it inappropriately. By doing this, we can not only teach the average player how to use the system effectively, but even provide some challenge for more experienced drivers who may want to try the event without using it. You could theoretically do more to teach the car to the player, but I think just these two events are enough to get the IR18 basics down without getting redundant. If we wanted, we could also include a third event that's just a race on a road or street track, but I feel we should move on from this level and get to the pride of IndyCar, the ovals and Indy 500. Now that we're in the oval level, our first event will be focused on qualifying for oval races. IndyCar's oval qualifying system places drivers based on average speed over 2 laps, rather than through the quickest single lap time like many other motorsports. For the Indy 500 specifically, this is increased to a 4-lap speed average, so we'll do the same for our event with a 4-lap qualifying at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The gold criteria will be based on the average speed throughout laps, just like qualifying for the actual Indy 500. I'd say this is a more unique method of license test style events in comparison to simple time attacks like the vast majority of other tests. IndyCar has considerable overlap with NASCAR, especially in oval races, so we can also parrot some event ideas straight from the NASCAR school event. I'd bring back the drafting events, since drafting is important in both IndyCar and NASCAR oval races. The NASCAR drafting event involved overtaking cars through drafting, so we can do the same to teach players about drafting in IndyCar for our second oval event. Bring a few cars to Indianapolis again and have the player move up the order by staying in their slipstream. Although drafting occurs pretty much everywhere on the calendar, it's especially important on ovals as the flat-out nature of the tracks makes drafting one of few options for overtaking. But one important aspect of oval racing that the NASCAR event didn't cover is tire management. As any seasoned iRacing player will tell you, good tire management is what wins you races on ovals. So I want to design our next oval event to take advantage of this challenge and have the player extend the life of a tire as much as possible. The gameplay for this would be similar to the tire management practice program in the F1 games, measuring how much you wear your tires throughout a few laps. By teaching this, we can help players realize greater potential through the practice of tire management. It'll be an apt preparation for the final stop of our special event, and if you were focused in the WEC segment, you might already have an idea for what I'm doing. Of course, it's another full Indy 500. Actually, the Indy 500 was already in Gran Turismo 5. Yes, I know. But that one was with a bunch of LMPs. They're pretty close in performance to actual Indy cars, but they're not Indy cars now, are they? Our new Indy 500 event will be with the actual IR18 we've been driving. Other than that, things are mostly the same as any other long GT race, 200 laps with tire and fuel management. In terms of prize cars, it'll be for golds only like the previous event. Similar to the Super Formula cars in the game already, the IR18 has 2 engine options, Honda and Chevrolet, so getting gold in the first 2 levels can win you one of the 2 options. Either you can choose outright or have a GT3 style prize car roulette. The full Indy 500 level will take a lot more effort, so we'll give out a more valuable prize like a classic Indy 500 winner to really invoke the historicality of the race. It might be another Model T situation where you get a relatively shitty car for a difficult event, but IndyCar rep in GT is scarce enough as is. TLDR, we need Indy cars in GT. But hey, we've spent this entire segment talking about open wheelers. We might as well just go for the jugular and hop straight into one of the more well-known open wheel series. Oh, you know which one exactly. So let's cut to the chase and create an event for everyone's favorite Formula Championship, Formula E. Wait, what do you mean this isn't everyone's favorite? Jokes aside, Formula E was one of the series for which I really wanted to make a Gran Turismo event, because this series makes use of some pretty wild driving mechanics that could be fun in their own way. Our Formula E special event will only be one single level, as I feel that this could encapsulate most of the necessary information to race well in the series. However, as we're about to see, there will be a wide range of scenarios to cover in this level. First of all, although it still very much is an open wheel Formula car, the Formula E car is pretty unique among others of its kind with its handling situation. It has a relatively high top speed, but it's also fairly lacking in both downforce and braking power. As such, I feel we'd need our first first event to help get players used to this like we did for IndyCar. So our first event will be another single lap attack, but there's another thing that's important with this first event, the choice of track. Although Formula E does visit traditional road courses, the series takes place primarily on temporary street circuits. Since they offer an additional layer of challenge thanks to the lack of runoff and varied surfaces, you bet we're doing this on an E-Prix circuit like Monaco or even London. Cause you know what they say, the best time trial is a trial by fire. Now it's time for the interesting stuff that helps make Formula E as completely fucking batshit as it is. Buckle up, because we're about to get a bit out there with the E-Prix mechanics. Alright, first on the docket is attack mode. Basically, you must drive in a specific area off the racing line at least once during a race. Although it costs you time at first, it means you unlock attack mode and can activate it in 2 temporary periods for some extra power and 4-wheel drive. It's a bit more complicated than that in terms of time and regulations, but that's the gist of it. To make something that shows this off, we'll have our second event force the player to use attack mode to win a short race, and we'll have to get a bit creative for this one. Essentially, we'll have the player complete a 3 or so lap race on a street circuit starting in the middle of the pack. They'll be forced to take the offline attack mode route at least once in the race. If they finish without doing so, they'll be disqualified. But once they've taken it, they can press the button to activate it for a few minutes of the race. After that, it's just a straight shot to the line. Now, what I just described is a bit of a simplification. Actual FE drivers have to choose between a few options for the 2 time intervals taken, rather than just turning it on all willy-nilly. Look, whatever Formula E has got going is more complicated than I thought it would be, but regardless, it covers the general risk and strategy factor in an engaging, understandable, and compressible format. And finally comes the other E-Prix mechanic, quirk, whatever it is. It's time to cover pit boost. Basically, certain races require all cars to pit once during the race. Although they'll lose around 30 seconds in the pits, the cars will receive a 10% energy boost for the rest of the race. It's essentially just a way to get pit strategy in races without full-on car swaps like in Gen 1. Those car swaps would be fun to animate though, and since it is just a glorified pit stop that you'll probably make in other races anyway, I figured I'd just do something like what the NASCAR special event did to integrate this in our final event. You'll start off leading a race with a few laps to go, then pit in to receive your pit boost. Like the previous event, you'll be disqualified if you don't pit during the scenario. The time you lose will land you in the middle of the field, and you'll have to fight your way back up. This will mainly help the player get used to the change in power compared to before the boost. Prizes are simple enough, however. Bronze earns you an electric safety car from the series, and gold wins you a Formula E car. That was simple. All these mechanics are interesting, exciting, sure, but also maybe an interference with the spirit of true racing. But it's a special event teaching you about the series, so I'm including them. And regardless, it was kind of fun integrating all this more arcadey stuff into the events, and also pretty difficult trying to wrap my head around the specifics. To make up for it, let's cover something a bit more relevant and popular to the average person, assuming the average person is an F1 fan at least. I wanted to just do Formula 1 initially, but I scrapped that idea in favor of something even more interesting, a special event for the F1 feeder series. That means we'll be covering the road to F1 through various junior Formula series. There are plenty of roads and routes to the pinnacle of motorsport, so I've decided on one for our level divisions, National Formula 4 to Formula 3 to Formula 2. It'll also be a more straightforward finish one level to unlock the next deal to add a bit of progression. Karting could also count, but there's already a karting special event in 5. And yes, I know it's a bit more complicated with the super license and all the point stuff, but this is Gran Turismo, okay? Let it have some more arcadey elements for the sake of gameplay and enjoyment. Speaking of gameplay, I'm switching things up for this series, or in this case, collection of series. Instead of individual events teaching certain aspects of each series, I'm just gonna have a championship for each level that increases in difficulty as you continue. Basically, think back to the Red Bull X special event from 6, which had a similar series of increasingly difficult championships. We'll start off with the Formula 4 level. In real life, F4 doesn't have any international championships. Instead, there are a multitude of smaller national and regional championships like the British Championship or Chinese Championship. I wanted to simulate this with the levels, so to start off, we'll split the F4 level into 3 championships based on the World Circuits regions. There will be a US Championship and a Japan Championship since those 2 regions have plenty on their own, and there will be a 3rd championship to represent the Europe section, the Italian Championship. Championship, since Italy has the most in-game tracks of the continent and the oldest IRL F4 series. Each individual championship will have 3 races at different circuits within the region. For time reasons, I won't go over the specifics, but there are plenty of track choices available. And once you finish any championship in the top 3, you unlock the next level. If you win the whole thing, you'll also get an F3 car to use in it. And although you don't have to complete all of the championships to proceed, if you win all the F4 championships, we'll give out a safety car or something, cause why not? Speaking of F3, now's the perfect time to talk about the Formula 3 level. There is a national Formula 3 championship, so we'll have that as the sole championship in this level. It'll also be much more difficult than the F4 level through faster cars, tougher AI, longer races, and an increase from 3 races to 5 races in the championship. We can also maybe include sprint and feature races where the results of the shorter sprint race form a reverse grid for the longer feature race. There will now be a wider range of race locations, like more across the other European nations due to the international nature of the championship. It's a similar deal for win conditions as with the previous level. You finish in the top 3, you unlock the next level. You win the whole thing, you unlock a Formula 2 car to use in that next level. And the Formula 2 level will be the toughest of them all. The cars are faster and the AI is tougher again. The races have even more laps and there will be 8 this time. But if you manage to pull through and win the entire championship, you'll receive a much coveted Formula 1 car of your own. Maybe it could be a Formula Gran Turismo, so logic entails you'll finally be able to complete the Formula 1 event in the main game and get a fucking Caterham 7 as a prize. Polyphony logic, I guess. What I've just described to you is what I think a more linear arcade style version of the Road to Formula 1 would look like. In terms of gameplay, it provides a challenge of increasing difficulty for the player and gets them used to the nature of formula cars. I also designed it to reward skill. If you can't get the prize cars for winning the championship but want to continue, you'll have to spend big at the dealership. But unlike real life, you can retry these events for free, so it's incentivized to get better and aim for the dub. Although what I've come up with isn't really education as much as it is just gameplay, I'm kinda proud of it personally. And if this means we get F4, F3, and F2 cars in games, sign me up. But we've been staying mainly on tarmac for all our events. I think we should get off the tarmac and look for multi-surface series like WRC, which had its own event in 5. So Gran Turismo's covered plain old rally plenty of times, kinda. The fact that it mostly takes place on closed circuits rather than point-to-point stages makes GT's rally offering closer to another type of motorsport in our next series on the list, Rallycross. In comparison to all the other series we've covered, Rallycross has races with much fewer laps on tracks with both dirt and tarmac sections. Plus, many Rallycross series make use of joker laps, where a driver must take a longer section of the track once in a race and lose some time. Given what I said about GT's closed circuit rallying just earlier, Gran Turismo already has plenty of Rallycross in it. It's just called regular rally and doesn't have joker laps. So returning to the special event we're creating, I want to do something similar to the progression we covered with the Junior Formulae earlier. In particular, you may recall the special conditions events from GT4. Each race is split into easy, medium, and hard levels, where each difficulty level brings progressively faster cars. So let's steal that, why not? We'll have beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels for our event. Beginner will have essentially stock tunes, intermediate will have amateur rally cars, and advanced will have full-on rally cars. Each level will consist of around 3 to 5 events with Rallycross races. This is probably the simplest of our special events, but we'll make things interesting by adding in the joker lap thing I mentioned earlier. You must take the joker lap at least once during the race for all the races, otherwise you fail, like the attack mode event from the Formula E section. By doing this for every race, it'll allow the player to get used to the mechanic and begin building strategy around it. This also means that we need to add joker routes for whatever tracks we want in the event. While some exist, like Barcelona's fitting Rallycross layout, many of the GT originals don't have them. I think having this Rallycross event would breathe some new life into the tracks through new joker routes. If not, it'd at least be interesting to see what they'd come up with for tracks like Eiger Nordwand or Sardinia. For our prizes, we'll give out rally cars for golds like in GT4. The beginner level will win you a modern Rallycross touring car. Intermediate wins you a more powerful touring car like Group A, and of course, hard wins you a powerful Group B car. Alright, that was a bit of a simpler one. It did essentially boil down to just joker laps, but it's a nice strategy option and a new challenge for players. And I think I've got enough enough energy for one more series, so following the direction we've been going, let's wrap things up with a pretty out there series for Gran Turismo. All of what we've covered so far has dealt with closed circuit races of some sort, but let's throw all that out the window and just concern ourselves with going as fast as humanly possible. And what better way to do that than with drag racing? It appears pretty simple on the surface, literally just wait until the light goes out and accelerate. That's what I thought coming into this, but there's plenty of depth and various diverse types of drag racing to go around. And while Gran Turismo has touched on it before, like with the scrapped mode in 2 and even some special races in 7, they haven't really gone all in on it. So that's where our hypothetical event comes in, because while the concept of going fast over a drag strip stays mostly constant throughout drag racing, it's the type of cars doing the racing that really matters. You got top fuel dragsters, funny cars, motorcycles, stock, but Gran Turismo is sadly lacking in this aspect. The closest we can get are some oddball drag configs for some GT2 cars, so we'll divide up the levels in this special event by the type of car in use. First, as a beginner level would just be a stock category, not stock as in the NHRA drag racing category that has cars that are ironically not stock but actual cars straight out of the dealership. This would be nice to compare two untuned cars outside of the machine test. Then we'll progress through the ranks by pure speed. So next we'll have a tuned car event that actually rings closer to the so-called stock and super stock categories, not confusing at all. Anyway, this category will have production cars that are souped up under the hood. This is where you can finally bust out your Chiron swapped monstrosities in an actual drag race. This specific category will test out the player's tuning ability, gauging whether they can truly bring greatness out of a car. And we could even benefit from new drag parts like wheelie bars or special tires to prepare our machines for such a category. After that comes bespoke drag cars, starting off with knee-slappingly hilarious funny cars. No longer will we have to worry as much about gear shifting and car choice. Now it's more down to staging and reaction time. Plus, due to the shorter wheelbase of the funny cars in comparison to other bespoke drag cars, they're quite a challenge to keep under control. And finally, the proclaimed kings of drag racing, top fuel dragsters. They go fast, like really fast, so getting the drag procedure right is even more important. And that's only scratching the surface for drag racing cars. There are so many other categories that we'd be here forever if I tried to fit them all here. But with our cars set up, let's come up with a drag race event format. In real life, many drag racing series use a bracket elimination format like the Humble Tournament. To emulate this, our drag race special event will have 3 separate races per single event, kinda like Real Racing 3, rest in peace comrade. You'll get bronze for winning 1 race, silver for winning 2, and gold for winning all 3. In terms of the drag races themselves, it'll operate closer to a real life drag procedure than how it is in GT7 with staging. Let me explain it for a bit. First, you gotta do some sick burnouts to heat up your tires and clear debris, of course. Then you move to the pre-stage. As you move up and the stage light activates, you'll stop and get ready for the lights on the Christmas tree to go out so you can get the race started. Where you stop is your choice, so long as you don't go too far and get the red light. If you stop as soon as the stage light activates while moving, you'll be shallow staging, increasing your reaction time but decreasing your elapsed time or time taken to run from start to finish. If you keep going until the pre-stage light turns off, you'll be deep staging, meaning you'll have a lower reaction time but run the risk of overshooting and getting disqualified. Once both competitors are staged, the tree lights go on after a small randomized delay, and the fun part begins. You'll also get a time slip after every run for bragging rights. Bit complicated, I know, but this is more similar to real life and adds a layer of depth to drag race gameplay outside of just hit the button at the right time. Also similarly to real life, this will all take place on a portion of straight line, like on Special Stage Route X. However, I think we'd also benefit from a dedicated drag strip, because in real life, actual drag strips are coated in a special compound that maximizes traction. This would allow the more powerful cars like the funny cars and top fuel dragsters to be used properly. Since each level is divided by the car class, we'd need a variety of races. Most realistic would be a quarter-mile race, since many drag racing series use that or a distance just below that for races. However, although it wouldn't be realistic for the bespoke cars with barely any fuel and essentially single-use engines, I think we could have some longer races for fun. Half-mile races, full-mile races, go the entire straight section of Route X. You only live once. These could all be separate races for each level to provide some variety and challenge, especially balancing acceleration and top speed. And finally, prizes. I won't exactly say prize cars, as I also want to sneak in some non-car prizes. For example, winning all bronze in a level would give you a free drag tuning part, like an ultra high RPM turbo, weight reduction upgrade, or even the aforementioned new stuff like wheelie bars. But the real good prizes come with the gold. They're prize cars, obviously. Winning the stock level will get you a drag tuned car like is seen in GT2. Then for the tuned level, you'll win a funny car. For the funny car level, you'll win a top fuel dragster. And for the top fuel level, you'll win a thrust SSC or something, I don't know. So those were a few racing series that could see some really fun GT special events. Let me know in the comments which series you'd like to see in GT one day, cause who knows, maybe I'll make a sequel to this. Anyway, thanks for watching, and remember, the car is heavy, but not as heavy as your